A mastermind assembles America's greatest gang of professional bank robbers. They target one of the richest banks in America.
And approximately 90 seconds later, they left the bank with $283,000 and disappeared.
They got away. We didn't know who had done it, and we didn't know where they went.
It was the largest cash robbery in San Diego history.
Find out how they did it next on Masterminds. Southern California, warm weather, endless beaches, and a mecca for surfers searching for the perfect wave. But in 1980, it was home to a very different kind of wave.
In 1980, it was a sudden wave of very, very large bank robberies all up and down the California coast. Really, the only clue that it was the same gang doing all of these robberies was that one of them wore an oversized stopwatch around his neck. The name, the Stopwatch Gang, was actually invented by the FBI, who were just being driven out of their minds by this gang.
Your average bank robbery take might be $1,500. With the Stopwatch Gang was probably several $100,000.
As the Stopwatch Gang continued to cut a swath of robberies across California, the FBI were becoming increasingly frustrated by this gang that was roaring into banks and leaving with huge amounts of money and then vanishing without a trace.
I remember vigorously investigating the Stopwatch Gang and not really getting very far. We didn't really know who they were.
Part of the reason they didn't know who they were was they weren't from California. They were really living in Arizona.
In Arizona, the Stopwatch Gang had a different reputation. They were known as successful concert promoters.
And here was 3 of the most hunted people on the FBI's most wanted list. And everybody just thought these were 3 of the nicest guys they'd ever met.
The gang's leader was so bold, he even charmed the wife of the local deputy.
She came home one day and said, "Oh, I met the most wonderful people. The guy's in the music business. He goes to California quite often."
In California, as the FBI was chasing dead-end leads, the gang's mastermind was planning his greatest robbery yet.
The big San Diego robbery really was the product of months of meticulous planning.
I remember hearing over our police scanner that the Bank of America had been robbed. They said that they had lost $283,000. It was clearly not your normal bank robbery. They obviously had done their homework.
Under Mitchell's guidance, the gang, consisting of fellow Canadians Reid and Lionel Wright, commit numerous robberies before moving to California to avoid prosecution.
After they left Canada, they moved to California for what would become the biggest bank robbing spree in California's history.
The first step in Mitchell's master plan is to create new identities for the gang. At the public library, he scans the obituary sections in old newspapers.
You find someone who born in one state and died in another, somewhere around your age. The first thing that you have to apply for is his birth certificate. And when you get his birth certificate, then you just build the rest. Within a matter of months, we had every major credit card.
Armed with their false identification, Mitchell and his crew now target the Bank of America in San Diego.
And they would go into the bank and they would charm the tellers and they would make withdrawals and deposits and set up a regular banking routine. All the while, all they were really doing was casing the bank.
Instead of robbing the tellers, Mitchell decides to hit the much richer cash transfers from the vault.
Their planning was always tied to the deliveries and pickups of armored truck companies at the bank. So the bank became the site, really, of an armored truck robbery.
The Stopwatch Gang must have done some very extensive surveillance of the bank and of the delivery truck to know how it functioned as far as bringing in money.
They would follow armored trucks around town for weeks on end to find out what their routines were, where their stops were. He could tell you exactly how many seconds there were between stops, how many left turns the truck made.
After determining which armored car to hit, Mitchell has Lionel Wright obtain the getaway vehicles for the heist.
What we decided to do was we just used some fake ID that we had, rented some cars, and then we went out and stole license plates.
Mitchell steals plates from the same types of cars to prevent the police from identifying the rented vehicles.
So you make the switch. Try to stay to a model close to yours.
Next, to distract witnesses' attention away from their true identities, Mitchell carefully chooses gaudy disguises for the gang to wear.
There's a lot of studies and things on what witnesses remember. You know, they remember these upfront details. You know, what they're going to remember is gaudy costume you had on.
Reid and Lionel Wright also conceal their identities by covering their fingertips with invisible tape.
On September 23rd, 1980, after months of meticulous planning, attention to every conceivable detail, the StopWatch gang arrived at the Bank America branch in San Diego. And they arrive at the bank 5 minutes ahead of the armored truck delivery.
Mitchell stays in the car as lookout. Wright and Reid enter the bank.
Lionel Wright went to one end of the bank and began filling out a deposit slip. Reid went to the loans department with a briefcase and began rifling through some papers.
We had to go in and sit inside the bank for what we hoped would be, you know, a couple of minutes, the way we had time.
Unfortunately for them, on that day, as Paddy Mitchell sat sweating it out in the getaway car outside, the armored truck delivery was not 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, but 20 minutes late.
And Lionel's looking over at me. He's filled out his 100th withdrawal slip. You know, like, how many times can you shuffle the same piece of paper?
Reid's sweat is now causing his makeup to run. The invisible tape shielding Wright's fingertips is starting to slip off.
You know, we're getting more and more anxious. Like, where are you guys? What's going on?
Mitchell's ready to call the whole thing off.
And I'm looking at my watch, I'm looking at the bank watch, I'm thinking, oh, something's different, something's gone down.
After a nerve-wracking 20 minutes, the armored truck finally arrives.
He came through the door, and of course we had to take him on the way out.
Reid patiently watches the guards stacking the cart. He can tell by the bag's shape that they're filled with coins, not bills.
They'd made, in fact, 3 deliveries. The first 2 were coin, which they watched go in and out. And then the third one had $283,000 in 3 canvas bags on the cart.
They finally have what they want.
Reid stepped out in front of him, and all of those papers he had been rifling through, from underneath them, he pulled a gun, said, "Please don't try and be a hero. This is a holdup." The armored truck driver, of course, looked down and saw that they had a gun. Stephen ordered everyone in the bank to lie on the floor. Reid snapped the driver's gun out of its holster, took it from him. Lionel then came up behind the guard, relieved him of the bags of money, and approximately 90 seconds later, they left the bank with $283,000 in these canvas bags and once again disappeared.
Mitchell and his crew now launch into the getaway phase. The next few minutes are critical.
All this stuff's going into big duffels so that we're not carrying money bags and guns, and, you know, our ties are coming off and our jackets. You know, it seems really fast when you're doing it.
Getting rid of the car, getting rid of their disguises, getting rid of their wigs was always important. So they would rent a place that had underground parking. The car could go into the underground parking lot.
They bag all the evidence from the robbery. including the getaway car's distinctive racing stripe.
One of the tricks they used was to kind of dress up the car, they used to call it. Big fluorescent racing stripes down the side of it. All things that could be removed within minutes after a robbery, but things that would distract witnesses. They got the license plates off and exchanged them back with other stolen license plates.
Lionel puts all the disguises in a second getaway car.
I grab the gear, head up to the apartment, and I'm on my way up the elevator while Lionel's taking the car, because we only want one person in the car at that point. Paddy, he goes running back by the bank. Paddy's kinky that way. He likes to go see what's going on back there at the same time.
After committing the biggest bank robbery in San Diego history, mastermind Paddy Mitchell and his gang have slipped past the police. The only problem is, their perfect heist is threatened by yet another late pickup. The masters of precision bank robbery, Paddy Mitchell and his StopWatch gang, have robbed nearly $300,000 from the San Diego Bank of America and made a clean getaway.
Most bank robberies at that time in California, the FBI would solve them in a matter of days, if not weeks. The StopWatch gang, they were getting nowhere. They had no leads, they had no clues.
They got away. We didn't know who had done it, and we didn't know where they went.
You know, if they didn't get us at the bank, they basically weren't getting us, you know, unless they got lucky with something.
Unfortunately for Paddy Mitchell, the authorities do get a lucky break.
They were all going to meet up again in Sedona, Arizona, but then something went horribly bad.
And Paddy and I are in a hurry to get back, as we said, back over to Arizona. So we leave Lionel, we throw everything in bags, leave Lionel with the cleanup. And he had a dumpster timed down Pacific Beach. So he's going to go there with the stuff that's going to put us in jail, the wrappings off the money, the wigs. He's going to throw them, when he sees the truck coming, he'll throw them in there, and then it goes in, and then it's compacted, and it's gone.
So there he was with all of the evidence just about to drop into the dumpster. A local police car pulled right up beside him.
Some cops come along, and they're sitting there, and now he's sitting there.
I think it's safe to assume that Lionel Wright's heart stopped at exactly that moment.
So now he's parked beside a dumpster, so he's got to look like he's doing something. So he takes a couple of garbage bags out and tosses them into the dumpster and drives away.
Anyway, the police car had no idea who it was or what was in the bag and moved along.
That break came only a few days later when a couple of people were looking for aluminum cans out in a dumpster out on Mission Bay. And they found this big bag, opened it up, and it had the bank bags in it. And that's what it was. It had the bank bags, as I recall, it had the wigs and the mustaches. There were fingerprints. Prints were run, and it turned out to be Paddy Mitchell and Steve Reid. Their prints obviously were well known in Canada. Of course, they gave us the whole background. Then we found out these were very, very well-known people.
With solid identifications of their suspects, the FBI checks car rental records. They come across a photocopied Arizona driver's license for Ronald Scott, a man who bears a striking resemblance to Lionel Wright.
San Diego spoke with Steve Chenoweth in Arizona and made arrangements for them to be located and picked up.
I got a call from the office in Phoenix telling me that we had a couple of fugitives in Oak Creek Canyon, which is just south of where I was. So they wanted me to go down, verified that in fact they were there. One thing that we did find in the Oak Creek, Sedona area is that they had made a lot of friends, and some of them were reluctant to give us a lot of information. Some of them refused to believe that they were the kind of people that we told them they were. Some just refused to believe that these nice guys would actually commit a bank robbery.
Undeterred, the FBI enlists the help of the local police.
We met with the FBI early in the morning at our office and made a plan. The agents found an address, but not familiar with Sedona. They asked me to go with them and find this house.
The FBI stakes out the house, and that night, Lionel Wright is arrested at home in his bed.
And of course, we got Stephen Reid that morning.
Well, it was total surprise. He had no idea whatsoever that that was about to happen. And he thought he was being stopped for a traffic violation.
When we got arrested in Arizona, it was Lionel and I. Paddy had left had just left. I think his bed was still warm.
Paddy Mitchell still wasn't finished with the American banking industry and went on a spree of very sizable bank robberies across the southern states.
Paddy continues to use multiple aliases and even has plastic surgery to avoid being recognized. In December 1981, using the name Richard Landry, he's arrested for robbing a department store in Phoenix.
And Richard Landry had no arrest record here in Arizona. The judge set a rather low bail in the amount of, I think, $16,000. So it didn't take long for Paddy Mitchell to post bail. And so he was long gone again. When we knew that Landry was in fact Paddy Mitchell, we certainly intensified our efforts to try and find him. He wasn't going to be up on the East Coast in the wintertime. He was going to be in a nice place down along the beach, warm weather, women, not necessarily in that order. So there's only certain parts of the country that you can do all that in. Florida was one of those. And so we intensified our efforts down there to try and find him, and then sure enough, we did find him in 1983.
Police were able to track him to a small cottage in Astachula, Florida, sleepy town in central Florida, where Paddy was arrested without any kind of struggle.
He wound up being sentenced in Maricopa County Superior Court here in Phoenix to 18 years in the Arizona State Prison. It's not a fun place to be. It's not where you want to go.
Escapes are unheard of. People being killed trying to escape is not unheard of. Very dangerous to even try.
The one thing about Paddy Mitchell is that he's always got his eye open as to how to get out.
For months, Paddy planned what would become one of the most outrageous escapes in the history of Arizona State Penitentiary. The warden described him to me as one of the nicest darn cons that he had ever met. So they gave Paddy some of the lighter jobs, and one of the jobs that Paddy most wanted was to janitorial service in the visitor room in the administration building. This gave him access through the ceiling to the air conditioning ducts. On May 9th, Paddy Mitchell got up into the air conditioning duct, shuffled right over top of the warden's office, and out through a utility shed that led to the open. He walked across the parking lot of his super maximum security prison, got into a car, and disappeared. After his escape from Arizona State Penitentiary, Paddy Mitchell moved to the Philippines. He was married and was really living the quiet life that he had wanted for so long.
After a couple of years, when we'd been looking for him, he'd kind of dropped out of sight. But somebody called into the FBI office and said, "I think I know this man. He was my neighbor in the Philippines." And there is no extradition treaty with the Philippines. But once we did take them into our confidence, it didn't take long for word to leak out.
A neighbor came to him and said, "It's funny, they're talking about you down at the police station." That was good enough for Paddy Mitchell. As it turned out, the FBI missed him by one day.
So the next morning, sure enough, he was gone. I had chased this guy around the country at various times in my life for, it seemed like 15 years. And it was just kind of like a bad dream that wouldn't go away.
Mitchell returns to the U.S., back to the only job he knows.
He spotted the FBI out there, and then he had to go back at it again, because, when you're an aging bank robber, your options aren't all that great.
In a small town in Mississippi, Mitchell uses a new ploy to rob a bank. He calls in a bomb threat.
But this time he's alone, so he doesn't have anybody to go in with him. He doesn't have a lookout or anything like that. He tried a robbery in Mississippi, and he tried it at the wrong bank and at the wrong time. The police department had been subjected to that MO not too long before, and the police chief recognized it.
The police get the drop on Mitchell outside the bank. He is arrested and at trial found guilty of armed robbery. Paddy Mitchell, the last of the great bank robbers, is sent to Leavenworth Prison. Barring another miraculous escape, he won't be eligible for release until his 115th birthday.